So, hello, everyone. Thursday, Paul Silva here with a very expressive face right now for no reason other than just it's time to get going. Hope you're doing well. This is just a really informal kind of Q&A that I decided to do, and hopefully it'll be something that can open up more, and just really it's just general questions on drinking, recovery, if you're sober curious, people who may be in relationships with someone who is having issues with alcohol. Maybe it's yourself, how things that are coming up for you in along drinking or alcohol. So it's not necessarily for those who are alcoholics, or it's just people that maybe are stressed out, you're having a little bit more, or someone. So it's kind of that area that I'd like to cover. So that's the kind of questions that I'm inviting. And I have a few questions already. So some of you were kind enough to ask ahead of time. But I will take questions here, just seeing what our timeline is like. There's no rush. It's pretty casual. And so I'd love to, so I got Alan here. Alan, thank you. Such a lovely man. You see Devorah and a few folks, some lovely folks here on the Instagram. Hello. Okay, well, I assume you can hear me. Can you hear me? Can anyone? Bueller? Alex, how are you? Okay, so I'm going to jump in. I have, like I said, I have a couple questions here I'd like to just go ahead with, and I'll keep an eye. I'm going to try to keep an eye on all the screens in front of me, and we'll go ahead. All right, so the first question I have is, how do I know that I'm starting to drink too much? Well, that's not the easiest question to answer because it's really individual, right? That's first and foremost. But there are some signs, okay? And it's a little bit different for everyone, but there's some general signs, like, if you're feeling kind of crappy, alcohol is not great for sleep, even though it gets you to sleep quickly, it doesn't keep you in a really good, healthy sleep. So if you're waking up regularly, not well rested, feeling a bit groggy around the edges, and it doesn't take, it depends on the person. It doesn't take, you don't have to be sitting there having 15 beers or a glass of wine to be hungover. You can have that one extra, maybe it's just two, depending on who you are. That might be enough. Another sign is that maybe you're stashing more bottles. You're starting to purchase more bottles. That's another sign that maybe it's starting to build up a little bit. And speaking of building up, also tolerance. So what used to get you in a mood, with one, maybe he's taking 3 glasses now. So that's something to keep in mind. You may find that you are only attracted to drinking only activities. So maybe there's, some coffee thing or something around where it's not alcoholic, and you're not very interested. And you're like, pass. Ooh, tasting, whatever it is. So you're only attracted to that, or you're starting to find yourself more attracted to that. Neglecting responsibilities. So you're starting to push things off. Your to-do list is kind of the bigger things, or maybe some of the important things are starting to slip. And that could be because you're not feeling well. It's interfering with maybe a drinking activity. And so the drinking activity is taking precedence. So that's another thing. You may have a hard time setting limits. So you may be going out with the girls, or just, having a guy's night out. You say, I can just have 2 drinks. And you have a real hard time sticking to those 2 drinks. Maybe it's 3 and 4. And then you say, okay, I'll do 3. That's it. God is my witness. And then it's 4 and 5. So that it's a very slow build too. It's not something that happens overnight. And I'm talking about overall, like we all, many people go through phase. Maybe they're stressed out. Something's going on, breakup, divorce, something. And there may be an, impact in terms of the amount of drinks or drugging. I'm going to include drugging in it, but, let's say with the drinking. But this is now sort of a more of a lifestyle thing starting to happen. So that's what we're talking about. Someone saying, I'm addicted hash. I'm smoking when I was 14 every day. And Alex is, I know I couldn't stick to 2. Yeah. How do you stick to 2? Because it's just like one more is not going to hurt. One more is not going to hurt. It's, it's kind of the thinking of more. So that's another one. And also others commenting, maybe you got your friends saying, hey, you want to, you're going at it again. Maybe these little snarky remarks, and that could be a sign as well. And really, the fact that you're asking this question, am I drinking too much? That's probably a good sign that you might be. Like, I don't ask myself of like, am I having too many Brussels sprouts? unless I have a real Brussels sprout problem. Hi, Lori, how are you? Glad to see you here. And Dewan, gonna see you in a few weeks, my friend. So this is, just the fact you're asking the question, at least there's some self-awareness around it, and that can get you into maybe some deeper discussion with someone. And so even a few of these tips. Now, everyone tends to go, when you ask that question, you also get into the quizzes, those online quizzes like, am I an alcoholic? Those are fine, but really, if it's becoming a problem. So what to do? So you have that question. There are things like you can go online and it'll say like cut down the portion size, drink more water, reduce the portion size, count your drinks. I love that one. It's like people are counting for me. I don't need to count. So those are like little tricks and tactics, but I find that doesn't really work sometimes. Like it's really, what is it that's triggering? What is creating the need to reach? What is it, where we're crossing the line between chilling out and numbing out? And there's a difference. So what is it within you that wants to reach out for that extra drink or reach for a drink period when maybe it's not warranted? So what I suggest to some of my clients is to journal. So when you find that you need that drink, what is it in you right now? What are you feeling that either you're trying to avoid or you're trying to cover up? So what is it? So I always get a pen, paper, have a journal just for this, and write down, like it's sort of like a trigger journal, for lack of a better word. Andres, Bronson, Tony, welcome. All the gents here, I love it. I love seeing all the guys here too. And the lovely ladies, of course. So journal, what's the pattern? What are you feeling? And you might find after you start doing this, you will see a pattern. And then, you can do something like take a couple days break. Now, if you have a hard time doing that, if you are really struggling, then certainly there's something behind that. If it's easy for you to take 3 days off, maybe it's not down far the line, but certainly that's a way to do it. But the other thing too is like, looking at the feeling. What is it that drinking or drugging brings up? Like, what does it do for you? And then the question is, what other activity or something that you can do that can give you the same effect, the same feeling? And that's a hard one. That's something that you have to really work on, right? So what is it that the drink or the drug is doing for you? And is there another activity or thing that you can do that'll help to bring you to the same place, essentially? And so that's a good one to think about. So if that's you, take a week, write these things out, see if there's a pattern, and then see if there's a way to replace it. Like, it's hard to just take out a habit and not replace it with something. Okay, so there's that, and I hope that answers the question there. The other, and by the way, guys, if you have, again, I'm kind of looking at these screens. If you have a question, by all means, throw it in there, and I'll throw it into the mix, into the roster. Okay, so the second question I had was, how do you start a conversation about someone's drinking? Awkward. So what I always say is, when you feel like there's someone, a loved one, a friend, whatever it is, that it could be a coworker, is first of all, catch them when they're sober. I know it sounds very obvious. The worst time to do it is when they've been at it and they're not in the best mental state. So another good time is like the next day when they're maybe feeling a bit groggy. That's a great time to approach them. The other thing is really communicate how it's affecting you, how their drinking is affecting you. All right. So use a lot of I statements, like I feel this, I, because they can't really argue. If you're doing this, the you, then people get defensive, right? But if you can take ownership of your feelings using the I statements, that makes a big difference. So there's nothing that they can really come back with. And also talk about what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Really kind of explain the impact that their drinking has on you, and then really put some boundaries. So you may want to think about this conversation before, and have some do's and don'ts. And also the most important thing is also what the consequences are of their actions crossing those lines that you have, those boundaries. Okay, so, and sticking with them. And that's hard. I've worked with a lot of mothers, and they've had to like kick their kids out of the house and change the locks and do these kind of things. It's really hard. But in the end, it's really about the boundaries. It doesn't have to go that far, though. That's just a kind of an extreme example. And then, once you explain your side, stand back and just listen. That might be hard. They may get defensive. There might be lots of reasons. There's going to be justification, all this kind of stuff. But just listen. Listen to understand, right? Don't start creating like comebacks, rapid fire. Just listen to them. And, there might be something that you don't know that's going on. So really just take a listen, no accusations, don't interrupt. And then see in there if there's any possible solutions that you guys can come up with. There may not be at that moment, but at least clearing the air and getting that open and just saying really, a lot of times people don't know the impact. A lot of times people who drink excessively or are starting to go down that path think that it only affects them. And we have seen that it definitely doesn't. And if someone really is, if you feel like they are alcoholic or they're teetering on the border, you can also read up on the topic a little bit just to understand it, because it's really about hating the illness or hating the alcoholism, whatever it is, and not hating the person, right? So we tend to integrate them, but it's really when someone is really suffering, like really, really suffering, they're not quite themselves, and we all know that. So it's really it's hard to detach emotionally sometimes, but that is better for both of you if you can have that detachment in that space. And then overall, really, it's about being supportive but firm, and you can let them know, hey, anything you need, I'll help you, and do follow through with that, right? It's no time for empty words. So that is generally how I would approach someone who is struggling with their drinking or drugging. Deborah here said she took a class because she didn't understand. So that really helped you in terms of understanding what alcoholism or addiction in general is. So that's really cool. So that's that. So if I don't know if I've missed anything there, but again, it really depends on the level. It could be an employee and a boss, or it could be a married couple, and there's going to be history in there that might shift things in terms of the conversation, but really is coming detached with love is the best way I can describe it. The next one, someone asked me about sober curious. So what's her name? Oh my God, Ruby. I'm embarrassed I forgot her name. She there's a book came out not too long ago called Sober Curious, and Sober Curious really is the idea of eliminating alcohol for health reasons, or for sleep and wellness. It's also, for some people, it's about playing with the idea of sobriety, but not really committing to anything yet. Okay, so that's a very vague general kind of consensus. It's a way of testing the waters without getting fully in. And for a lot of people, it's not because they feel like they're going down the road of alcoholism. It's more that they just don't want to. They don't feel like it. They feel gross the next day. There's people, especially who want to stay fit and all that, they don't want to go back and pound a couple of drinks every night. And so they all have their different reasons. And the one thing that happens, and I'm not going to really get into it, but in recovery circles, there's some people that get kind of upset about this whole sober curious thing, and I don't really understand why. I think there's some people in recovery that feel that it trivializes recovery, and thinking it's trendy and how dare you, this is life and death for me, which, hey, listen, it's life and death for me. I get it, believe me. If I were to pick up, see ya, you won't see me anymore. Hey, Davida, how are you? Nice to see you. And but I don't feel that that's the case. It's like if I'm going gluten-free. If I decide that I don't like, the wheat belly, and I cut out gluten, it doesn't mean that I'm trivializing celiac, right? That's how I see it. I'm not concerned. People who are sober curious aren't thinking about, alcoholics in recovery. They're just thinking, I just want to look good and feel good. I want to have a clear head, and I also want to have fun. So sober curious is not, it's becoming more of a lifestyle. So you're seeing a lot more bars now with really great, they don't even, mocktails, and even the wording is changing, right? So non-alcoholic, I think they're calling them spirit-free. So even the language is starting to change a little bit with this sober curious movement. And, for me, it's it's really, if someone's just experimenting with this and this sober lifestyle, I mean, for me, it's like, if that's what is really going to help you and improve your lifestyle, then go for it. I don't take any sort of thing of how it's against recovery. So again, I don't quite understand that. But it's, there's so many great choices out there. So if you're sober curious, if you just want to see what it's like, if you go online, I'm sure there's like some challenges and stuff like that you can try and see how it fits. It could be you drink 1 day out of the week. It could be 1 day out of 2 weeks. It could be limiting a certain amount, but it's really about aiming for a really clean way of being. And that really affects mind, body, spirit. And that's something I talk about a lot, but it is mind, body, spirit. Okay, so that's that one. I hope that's comprehensive. I mean, there's a whole book on sober curious. So if you're really curious about sober curious, you can get that. The other question I have is so I have one more question here. So if you guys have another one, now that your brain's loosened up, what a dumb thing to say, silly. Okay, so this is a bigger question. So I'm just going to read this directly. I was involved with someone for 3 months, very intense but long distance. One day he tells me he's an alcoholic and is going to detox for that. And that was shocking. And this person hadn't heard from that person since. He did not go into inpatient rehab. And I know he's out because he's posting on social media. And I've not contacted him for several reasons. I feel it's in his court to contact me for some explanation. I'm hurt and I don't want to mess with his new sobriety. I think he feels shame over how he treated me and is afraid to contact me. Any thoughts? So, hey, Marco, how are you? So, first of all, thanks for the question as well, but good for you on the boundaries. We talked about just now about having the, conversation, but this is about boundaries and also self-worth. It's not like we go chasing, something like this, especially, this is something where there's some self-preservation at play. So we're not chasing. And here's the thing with people in recovery, especially if they are, in addiction recovery, if they are addicts or alcoholics, there's a lot of shame and guilt. Like that's almost like hard currency in that area, shame and guilt. And when we would drink or drug, we'd feel guilty and shame. We drink or drug that feeling away, bye-bye. And then we'd wake up the next day or later and feel bad that we did that. So it's like this cycle. And then into that, there's like self-loathing. That's another big thing. And so that all ties in. So when we get into recovery, there is a lot of, we don't have that mechanism anymore of numbing that out, of that feeling. So we're left with this huge depository of these feelings, especially, with relationships and all that in the past. And so that's why some of the programs like 12-Step, let's say, really work on that and try to clear that out. And that's where some things like amends come into play. And I certainly had to make lots of amends. But it was amazing to do that. And so just understand that there is shame and guilt, and that might be holding this person back from reaching out. And that's okay. That might be a process that they need to go through to figure out how to make the approach. They may not make the approach. I mean, that may be the end that you've heard of this person or not, but I wouldn't have that expectation of hearing from them. And, the idea of messing up his sobriety, I mean, that is on the person. I mean, life happens no matter what. And so if a call or listening to a certain song or anything like that triggers a relapse, I mean, that's not on us. That's on that person's sobriety. That's their recovery. And so if that's all it takes to tip someone over, then that's a very paper thin recovery. And that needs to be worked on. So it's not like we have to walk on eggshells around them. Life, we can be mindful and understanding that they're going through something, but we still, it's on them to be able to take life on life's terms. And so, if for some reason you really wanted to reach out, to just check in and just coming from a good place, coming from not like looking to get an apology, then by all means you can. You know, it could be just a very simple, hey, how's it going? And again, not expecting anything like that. When someone is going through recovery, it's very raw, and there's a lot of processing going on, and it does leave a lot of people with questions and hurt feelings and things like that. But you know, that's something we have to take care for ourselves. You know, whether it's forgiveness, whether it's again detaching with love and just letting them do their thing, and just really taking care of our needs, so that we're not looking to have them somehow fix that hurt, because only we can do that. They may have hurt us, but it's up to us to clear that air, to clear, you know, to clear the channels. And that's on us. So, and now if this person, you know, obviously didn't go, that's on them. And there's, again, we're not chasing people. That's not what we do. You know, when someone goes into recovery, or, you know, if you're just sober curious, or you're just trying to cut back, whatever, it's on us. It's on us to do that. You know, it's not, I've seen a lot of people in treatment who were there because they wanted to get, you know, their folks off their back, or their wife or girlfriend, or their boss, you know, who maybe been paying for treatment. And if you come to any of this, like anything, doesn't have to be recovery, doesn't have to be drinking, anything that you do has to come from here, has to be for you. And if you're doing it just to get someone off your back, it's not going to last very long. And I did see a lot of guys who did that go back out pretty soon after they left treatment. So I hope that answers the question. So those are the questions I have, guys. Do you guys have anything while we're here? We're here together on this lovely Thursday. Well, thank you, guys. There's a lot of awesome people here. I'm very happy to see you guys. Okay, well, listen, if you have any other questions, if something comes to you, or if you're watching this on the replay and there's something that comes to mind, by all means, just, you can put in the comments and I'll get to them, or you can just message me privately and I can answer you in that way. So it's totally cool. And of course, for anyone who wants to go deeper in this, anyone who really wants to kind of tackle some of these things like we talked about, like the triggers and what it is to help you get there, by all means, you can also book a call with me. You can message me and I can send you my calendar, and we can book something and we can talk about, you know, just a free consultation call, and we can see if there's any way we can hang and do it. So that's a possibility as well. But thank you guys again. I'm going to let you go then, since there are no more calls. You're welcome, Marco. Thanks for being here. And again, any questions, give me a shout. If not, take care, guys. Thank you so much.